Oh, yeah. Welcome in, everybody, to another Monday night edition of 410 Sports Talk. We are here live to give our official recap of the Baltimore Ravens Detroit Lions thriller. I mean, the miracle in what's it called? In Motor City. There you go.
There you go.
Motor City. That was a blast. Certainly a game that you need to bring out your heart pills for. But welcome to we're excited to have you guys in tonight and talk about all things Baltimore Ravens. But before we do, of course, this show is brought to you by our faithful partners and for
advisors, really.
Advisors, partners, sponsors for this show. And that is MyBookie. Guys, we've been talking about MyBookie for a while now. That's because we'd advise you to check them out. One of the really cool things, I don't know if you are, Glenn, but I personally, and fortunately or unfortunately, right now for me, fortunately, I'm into cryptocurrency. I'm doing well. Go buy some Cardano because you'll do all right. It's going to hit $5. But outside of that, so the crypto rewards program with MyBookie is designed for cryptocurrency players. Choosing to play with crypto means a few things: bigger bonuses, faster payouts, and zero fees. So take the crypto you got now, go put some of it in MyBookie, have some fun playing. Use our promo code 410 to get a match up to $1,000. Check it out. Use your crypto, have some fun with it. You play, you win, they pay. So go check it out.
Absolutely. So let's talk. Asmodeus Thanatos has an early prediction. He says, I'm calling it now. Next week's game is also going to be super close. Well, you're certainly playing the odds on that one because every game, I mean, my goodness, I thought this one was going to be, a much more relaxing afternoon when they were up 10-0 at halftime, but it certainly proved to be not the case. I was this close to having a meltdown, losing to the damn Lions after you beat the Chiefs. But thank goodness Justin Tucker's got the golden leg, and Lamar and Watkins connected to get him in just barely into range. I don't think he could have been an inch. I mean, people talk about, he needed just enough, and that's certainly the case. Is there any other angle in which it hits the crossbar and bounces through rather than back out of the uprights? I mean, it was certainly an incredible game. But yeah, next week, I mean, they're 3-0. The Broncos are 3-0. It looks like it's going to be another close one. They're also getting bit pretty good by the injury bug right now, which we'll get into when we do our preview. But I think you're right, Asmodeus. I think it's going to be another thriller.
Well, can I just say this really quickly, Glenn? I've never disagreed with you more in my life. Never.
Oh, my goodness.
We're about
Here
to
we go.
wax
The
Broncos. Yes, they're 3-0. Asmodeus, let me say this. They've beaten the Jets, whose quarterback is an absolute bum. He is a bust straight out of BYU, just like I expected. Not that Justin Fields is looking too much better, but certainly a bust and a waste of a second-round pick, and they're a terrible team. They beat the Giants, who, if I am Saquon Barkley, I want out. I'm tired of running laps for Judge, who can make me run laps and apparently can't coach his butt off because they're just looking ridiculous. I mean, they look like a high school team in comparison to some of these other teams out there. And the Jags.
Yeah, they probably played the three worst teams in the league.
So they're 3-0. Good for them. But the teams that they've beaten collectively can't, they don't have as much talent as Lamar Jackson has in his right pinky toe. So they, you could deal with that. But we're about to beat the brakes off the Broncos. I'm just telling you.
All right. Well, I think we were pretty confident going to that Lions game, and they damn near beat us. So let's not.
I'm going there.
Okay. All right. I like the confidence. I certainly appreciate that. But yeah, we'll see as this game gets a little closer what kind of Broncos team the Ravens are playing and what kind of Ravens team is actually going to be suiting up. But if Justin Tucker can make it from 66 in Detroit, then he can probably make it from 80 in Mile High. Wow, you look scary right there, Jimmy. You looked absolutely terrifying. Get your stuff together. But let me give a couple of big picture recaps of this past game, just so everyone knows exactly what went into the 1917 victory by the Ravens. So, first of all, the Ravens had 387 total yards for the game. That came but 271 on the ground and just 116 yards 271 through the air and 116 on the ground, much lower than the season average heading into that game. Jimmy still looks absolutely terrifying. You look like the blood god from the first Blade.
How's that?
Better. Still looks a little different, but better. But first of all, we need to switch you back to your
Oh yeah,
rightful
my bad.
place.
Sorry, I don't know
Because
why my screen went pink. Apparently, the Broncos were infiltrating our. I work for a cybersecurity company, and I can't keep the opposing team off my computer.
dude, it's becoming a part of our show, the technical difficulties that happen. So I'm fine with it. I mean, this is just what we are at 410 Sports Talk. But Billy Seals says, a
Thanks,
late
man.
congratulations to you, Jimbo, and
Thank
rightfully
you.
so. How are things? Everything going good?
Hey,
You getting some sleep?
we went to his first appointment today, and he knocked it out of the park. Of course.
Nice.
I mean, he just did great, looking good. He's doing a great job, sleeping well. I mean, nights are a party, of course, right?
Yeah.
But I try and make sure my wife can sleep as much as she can during the day because she ain't getting too much at night, and she tries to let me get as much as I can at night. She's an absolute champ, so everything is well. Thank you for asking, Glenn.
All right. Well, absolutely. Think everything is going to continue to go well, and we'll be rooting for you. But also, another Adam78 says before the season, Jay Flower. What was his name?
Fowler. Jeremy Fowler.
That's what it was. Jeremy Fowler says the league figured out Lamar. KC is 1-2, so why don't I hear Mahomes has been figured out? Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I think the shock that is the Kansas City Chiefs not just being 1-2, but being dead last in their division. I mean, they're looking up at the Chargers, who they just lost to, and then it's a pair of 3-0 teams in the Broncos and the Raiders, who, I mean, both look phenomenal. So, I'm waiting to hear a little more criticism. It's almost like they're
above it at this point.
Yeah, I guess so, because they have a championship that they do get a little bit more leeway room, and the Ravens have yet to get there, at least into the Lamar era. But yeah, it is amazing how quickly the criticisms get heaped upon Lamar. But I guess you got to give them a little. They do have a Super Bowl as a tandem, a coach and quarterback tandem. So I guess they get a little bit more leeway room. But shocking to see that.
Based on the antics. And if you watch the videos, they're pretty funny. Based on the antics of the fans, the Kansas City Chiefs fans at M&T Bank Stadium, they might be the most petulant, entitled fan base in the NFL right now. I mean, children, Glenn. I mean, come on. When the star quarterback's brother is throwing water on somebody.
Well, in fairness to Kansas City fans, that was really the main incident. We were there. We didn't have any incidents with any Kansas City fans. They were mainly respectful.
Right. Well, I did have a run-in with a guy in the parking lot before the game, and he was talking a ton of trash. And the only thing I said was like, look, nothing lasts forever, dude. You can't be too high because nothing lasts forever. And you know what? It didn't even last that night.
Nope.
So
it sure did.
But I want to say this and kind of bring this back because, of course, this is a recap show. And we will get to this, Adam. I think that's a great point. So I don't want to skip Adam's point, but we will address it. I want to say this because this is another interesting point to what he's saying. Why haven't people saying that he's figured out Mahomes? That people have figured out Mahomes, and of course we know the Chiefs have signed today. Josh, oh my gosh,
Gordon.
Josh Gordon. There you go, Josh Gordon. So I think of Stephen A's face more when I think of Josh Gordon and saying "stay off the weed" more than anything. But the article says the Chiefs have been searching for a wide receiver who can play every down, along with Tyreek Hill, since losing who? Sammy Watkins. As a free agent in the spring, they've given significant playing time to Mecole Hardman, Demarcus Robinson, and Byron Pringle, but none of those players have consistently delivered for the Chiefs. So I bring that back around to this game in that Sammy Watkins delivered for us on that 4th and 19, came through clutch because, of course, without that, we don't have the record-setting field goal. I thought that was a really interesting nugget. Shout out to Harry, who was at the game with us, for circling this and sending this over to me. But I thought that was very telling in the value that we have in Sammy Watkins. Obviously, we had it in this last game and the type of player we have, and the value that another team saw in him that they're looking to replace. So if you're looking for reliable, I don't know if Josh Gordon is the right guy. He's the antithesis of reliable, but you know what? You got to do what you got to do. So good luck trying, but we'll see.
Well, let me ask you this, Jimbo. I mean, because when the comparisons are ever brought up, Mahomes versus really anybody, but in this case, Lamar, the always the rebuttal to, Islam is Pat Mahomes really this, God's gift to the quarterback position and the next heir to the Tom Brady throne as far as that reign of dominance in the AFC. They always say, the Ravens defenders always say, well, look at the Mahomes weapons. I mean, he's surrounded by incredible weapons everywhere and has a head coach who's known for his offensive genius, and Lamar Jackson doesn't have those same luxuries. So you're telling me that Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce and Andy Reid isn't enough with Pat Mahomes to have success? You mean he can't carry this team because he's the greatest? He's the next greatest quarterback to be seen. You mean having Ty Hill, having Travis Kelce, and having Andy Reid isn't enough? You need more. I mean, and that having McCole Hardman isn't good enough. You need better than McCole Hardman. You need better than Byron Pringle. Oh, whoa. I thought this guy is the gift to quarterbacking, Jimbo. Certainly it's not like he lost Travis Kelce to an injury. It's not like Tyreek Hill is blown out a hamstring and can't run. He's still there. They need more than that, even with God's gift to quarterbacking Pat Mahomes. Wait, I'm lost. How can they need more?
Yeah, no, I'm with you 1,000% because I don't know anyone. I didn't hear anyone saying the year Lamar Jackson was the MVP, and he's doing all this with a bare cupboard when it comes to the wide receiver position. All this with no one recognizable that he's throwing the ball to. Not a single person. Hollywood Brown, hobbled Hollywood Brown as a rookie, was Lamar Jackson's number one target, right? As far as the wide receivers go, and Mark Andrews. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, you're absolutely right. It cracks me up. And in fact, I was just talking about this last night. I hate the discrepancy in treatment and media coverage of Lamar in comparison to other guys. Obviously, because Lamar's my guy. But watching Tom last night, who I want to say two things, but watching Tom last night whine and complain about getting hit and getting in the face of the Rams players, and then when his teammates makes a mistake, him throwing the ball on the ground like a pouting child and being called a awesome leader at the same time, where if Lamar did that, he would be out of control and not a good leader and this, that, and the other. It's ridiculous, but I agree with you 100%. I hate because Lamar and Mahomes will be tied closer at the hip than like Lamar and Brady or anything like that, right? Because they're closer in age. They're coming up together. They'll have battles for for hopefully decade plus to come. So I agree with you 100%. It's super frustrating, but I've said this before. People don't know how to, if you can't quantify or categorize, our brains are obsessed with categorization. If you can't categorize something, if it's unrecognizable, you don't sometimes give it credit. And that is Lamar Jackson. He's so unique. He's on an island. He's not Michael Vick. He's better than Michael Vick. He's not, Pat Mahomes. He's different than Pat Mahomes, right? He's not Tom Brady. He's different than Tom Brady. But this is the last thing I'll say. I agree with you 100%. Super frustrating. And I know we're recapping this game, kind of getting off a tangent. But I have finally come around, Glenn. And I know you've been waiting to hear this, so buckle up, okay?
Uh-oh. Hold on. Okay.
Pat Mahomes will not be the heir to Tom Brady. And I'll also say this. I don't know if we will ever have one. Just like LeBron James will never be Michael Jordan. Tom Brady and Michael Jordan are leaders, tyrants. I mean, they're so unique in the chip that they have, in the constant search and pursuit of greatness that they have, that the only thing I've seen as close to that, and I know it's extremely controversial, and he went over the line, but like a Lance Armstrong type, but they're so unique. I know Lance was a big cheater and a fraud and things like that. But my point is that if you talk about Tom and Michael, LeBron is not Michael. Pat is not Tom. He will never be Tom Brady. To me, Tom Brady is the greatest of all time, as much as I hate saying it. But the chip that he has, from the way he came up out of the spotlight as a backup in points in college, as a 6th-round pick, as a backup in the pros, all those things make up what he is today. And I think it's hard to be something like that if you have to fabricate those thoughts in your brain without actually going through them. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so I just don't think it'll ever happen. I just don't. I don't think it'll ever happen again, because the world is globalized. You can see players, they don't go under the radar. It just doesn't happen anymore, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, I just wanted to say that point. So hopefully I'm glad you're still conscious. And
Oh no, I mean, I think the thing we're going to continue to see, and I think we should almost do an entire video about it because I know people will come after me. Every single game, we see more and more that Tom Brady drugged Bill Belichick and Josh McDaniels into relevancy, made them the coaches that they are, and gave them the success that they have. And we will continue to see them flail about in the average coaches that they are until they decide to hang it up. And Josh McDaniels will never, mark my words, as young as he is, he will never reach the success that he had, not even close to what he had when Tom Brady was under center. He was an embarrassment yesterday, and they will ruin Mac Jones at quarterback because, I mean, look, the proof is in the pudding. They can't win a single game. I mean, it's embarrassing since Tom Brady has not been there, and it will continue to be embarrassing because he was the reason for the dynasty and not the coaching staff. Anyway, but yeah, I mean, I think that that it's like someone else said in the comments earlier, and I think it's a great point. And I think we've said it before. Oh, there it is. Abdi Hassan said Lamar Jackson doesn't need weapons because he is the weapon.
Absolutely.
And it is not can be the same cannot be said with everyone else and maybe anyone else, including Pat Mahomes. Raven 76 B More says no weapon formed against us will prosper. Absolutely. I know that's something John Harbaugh likes to bring up a lot, and certainly agree there. So, but look, we're not here to talk about the differences between those two. We're here to really recap and talk some other stuff. So one thing I wanted to talk about, we saw it yet again in last week's game. We saw another situation where it was a timeshare at left guard, right? And this offensive line, you know, as you look around the league, and really if you look at any level of football, college, pros, if you look at the successful offensive lines, you usually are looking at a playoff team, right? Yep. I mean, it's just how it is. If you can block the guy in front of you, then you usually have success offensively. So this offensive line is going to be a key part of the success of the Ravens, even with the guy like Lamar Jackson, who can certainly amplify and improve the play of all those around him. And mostly the offensive line sees the benefit of that. But the timeshare of the offensive line, we saw Powers play 55% of the snaps and Ben Cleveland play 45% of the snaps. So my question to you is, Jimbo, is this something we're going to just have to get used to seeing throughout the year? Is this like where they like Powers in certain formations and certain sets, and they like Ben Cleveland in other scenarios and other formations and other sets? Is this something we have to get used to, or is this something where we're slowly going to see Ben Cleveland take this job from Ben Powers throughout the season?
Yeah, this is an interesting one for me and a hard one to answer because I wonder, I talked about this the first time we saw Ben Cleveland out there, said I wonder if it has to do with the pulling plays. Right? Okay. We know Ben Cleveland is not fleet of foot. And so if they're asking him to get out there and pull and get to the second level, like, you know what, let's get Powers in there who can do that a little more while straight line blocking. I don't know if that's an actual term, but you understand the point, like, you know, the idea that seems to be where Ben Cleveland is better. So I'm going to say that the timeshare will continue this year. Unless, you know, because teams could easily pick up on that. Okay, 72's in the game. He's probably pulling and they're probably running to the right. You know what I mean? Like, that's just what it's going to be. So, it's going to be interesting, but I think that for this year, until Ben Cleveland can prove that he can get that done, it's going to be a timeshare thing. Now, this is the only caveat to my point. He didn't have much, you know, he was in and out in preseason. So maybe this is his ramp up period. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So maybe halfway through the season, he does take over the job. But my inclination is that it will continue to be that way. Similar to last year, that's how we saw with, who's the huge guy that we had for 1 year? Fluker and Tyree last year. We kind of saw that.
Yeah.
And so I think it'll be a similar thing. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree with you. I think they want to give the job to Ben Cleveland desperately, but there's just inefficiencies in his game that don't allow him to do so. But I do believe that if he continues to stay healthy, doesn't miss a bunch of practice, and is up from ready for games, that eventually he'll take over that job. And unfortunately for Ben Powers, he'll slide back into that backup role where he can cover both the right and left side if there's an injury. But yeah, I don't think Ben Powers is ever going to be trusted as the full-time, you know, like how Bozeman was on that kind of that probationary period when he first took over left guard. I don't think we'll ever see Ben Powers graduate past being the starter of the day into a full-time starter. I just don't. I think there's parts in his game that he just can't get good enough. Whereas Ben Cleveland, I don't think we've seen his ceiling yet. That's still up to be determined, and I think hopefully he takes over. Rich Diana says, James, you look like Harbaugh's kid. Do you buy into that?
So it's funny because my wife thinks I look like John Harbaugh.
Well, then there you go. Maybe
Yeah.
Rich
And
Diana
it's just
believes.
if you look, it's just we have these eyes that slant down right here and like the stronger brow. It's just really that. But I've heard that before. Yeah.
Well, that's not a bad thing because John's a good looking
dude.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, he's what, 58, 59?
Something like that. Yeah.
And if I look that good when I'm that age, which I plan to, but if I look that good, I'm all right with that.
Yeah, I wouldn't be upset either. I mean, I look closer to Garrett Downing, and I'm a little bit less happy about that. But
hey, you know what,
but
Glenn? I think. Well, I think
you can tell me I'm a good-looking guy. Thank you, Jimbo. Don't be worried about saying that. You know.
But let me ask you.
You just had a baby, so no questions about which direction you're leaning in, and it's okay to say that. But I know you had some other questions that you wanted to bring up.
I want to stay right on the offensive line here, and I want to go to Ronnie Stanley.
Okay.
So, and you brought this up. I think it's a great point, and this stuff like this is why we need to get a media pass, and we're working on it, folks. We're working on it. But John Harbaugh, the way that he phrased Ronnie Stanley's injury is kind of like they're making a decision between. Look, we're reading between the lines, but basically decisions need to be made, is what he said. And so, what my interpretation of it, and Glenn's as well, based on the information that was disseminated to me, was simply that it sounds like it's either going to be like a rehab type scenario or a surgery, and he could be out for a longer period of time type thing, maybe the whole season, and not come back at the end of the season. Reminds me of do you remember when Tavon Young had the neck thing?
Mm-hmm. And even Rashad Bateman was very similar. He had an opportunity to
and he
rehab.
opted to said, let's get surgery, let's knock this thing out and get it right.
Yep.
So what do you want to happen? So say, for example, the two options are Ronnie opts for surgery, he's out. We'll just say, to keep this assumption clean, he's out for the season. Mm-hmm. And Alejandro locks in at left tackle. Yep. And then we already know what our line is going to be. Or do you prefer that he goes through this rehab period, but the potential of coming back, call it between week 10 and 12, 8 and 12. We'll open it up a little more. But what that does, obviously you bring out all pro back, but it does provide you with some uncertainty and lack of consistency as when he comes back, you have to reinsert him, reacclimate him, and things like that. People move. Mm-hmm. So what's your preference? Because I think that you talked about this healthy offensive line leads to winning football teams. And I would add to that consistent offensive lines, right? Like, because they are a unit, lead to winning football teams. So what's your preference there?
Yeah, I'm so torn on this because I think you're right. I think it is definitely, it seems like they're trying to make the decision if they're just going to go ahead, go under the knife and make, just get the surgery and get it done and taken care of. But that, of course, comes with a longer and more extended time off, and it could stretch into him missing the entire rest of the season. Or they could say, let's try and rehab. You might miss 4 or 5 weeks, but maybe it heals on its own and we'll get you back out there and ready to go, say week 9, week 10, somewhere in that range. But then you could have a reoccurring injury, and then we're still doing surgery, but we're doing it 5, 6, 7 weeks down the line, which could impact your off season and your preparation for next season, which is something I don't want to see. So obviously if there's any hope that it could be a short-term rehab scenario and that he could come back fully with a relatively low risk of worsening the injury, then I think you kind of hold out hope and you think maybe he could come back, because I think at their best, there's no doubt about it that Ronnie Stanley's a better left tackle right now than Alejandro Villanueva is. I think that's a fair statement to say there. But
you're pretty safe.
But if there's any inclination that this is a situation where if he tries to rehab and does come back, that he could worsen the issue and create a tougher injury to have to do surgery and rehab back from. And then now you're talking about it impacts his offseason going into next year and impacts his preparation for next year. And now instead of getting stronger and building muscle overall, he's just working on rehabbing an injured ankle. then I'm not in favor of that. And I'm hopeful that they just get the surgery done now and let's start that process. That way he's ready to go. Look, they paid him a lot of money, Jimbo. And I don't want to see this where the length of or the entire length of his contract is marred by, well, can he get the ankle ready to go now? I don't want this to become an ongoing situation that goes on for years, because he's going to be getting paid for all those years when he's sitting in the training room. So right now we have a left tackle I think we're comfortable with. We don't love the fact that he's in there, but we feel okay about Big Al on the left side. Not as well about him on the right side, but on the left side, he's been pretty good. He hasn't been Ronnie Stanley of old, but he's been pretty good. So I think if there's any risk of worsening the injury, if there's anything like that, let's just get it done, get the surgery done, get it cleaned up, and let's get ready for an awesome season next year from Ronnie Stanley, when we don't really think that Big Al is going to be here. Right now, it looks like they're going to try and get out of that deal unless he just plays phenomenal and he wants to stay on as a backup, as a swing tackle for a much lesser rate. Right now, it looks like a 1 year, $8 million deal. And if that's your left tackle, that's a pretty good deal.
Yeah.
But I think that's what we have to go with. Leave Patrick McCarry at right tackle and leave Alejandro at left tackle for the remainder of the season. Get the surgery done, and let's get Ronnie back on the road to recovery. But this could all bite them in the ass if they decide to go that route, and then 2 weeks from now, Big Al is down with an injury himself, and now you have no one but Andre Smith to play left tackle. And I mean, the Ravens do not want to see Andre Smith at left tackle, Jimbo.
No, I mean, goodness gracious. As bad as they don't want to see me at left tackle, they don't want to see him at left tackle. I mean, geez, a whiz. No, that, it's being a bit facetious. He's a much larger man than myself. But yeah. So I guess what I'll say to this is that I agree with you in that I hope that if the rehab, like you said, is reasonable and there is reasonable consideration or reasonable possibility that he can come back this year at 100% instead of just managing to work through it with the potential of further damaging himself, then go for it. But like you said, as soon as this gets into the potential of further damage, let's stop there. Let's get it done, get it taken care of, get out in front of it. Because think about this, while we're what have you done for me lately league, and I think Eric might have learned a little bit. I don't know. Some people have talked about how we should have gone all in this year and kept Orlando Brown, and certainly that was a solid take after week 1. But I think those things have kind of quieted down, especially after Udafe played his butt off in week 2. But if you look at next year, if Ronnie is healthy at left tackle and Jawan James is healthy at right tackle, hey, you're talking about a Pro Bowler and an All-Pro at the bookends, and at a reasonable price that we can afford.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I mean, if you think
Ronnie's pretty pricey, but the right tackle, absolutely.
Right. And if you that's what I'm saying. If you think about teams with a flagship with 2 bookends, I'd be interested to see what the combined cost of them are or is in comparison to our guys, next year. Because certainly I don't think we would be the highest. And especially when it comes to output, I think would be one of the most valuable. So just something to think about as well as far as a silver lining. But yeah, I guess what I would say is, and the other thing too is consider, you got to be consistent. Consistency is everything. So if Big Al's holding it down, let's figure out how we can make that work. Especially if there's going to be any issues with Ronnie Longstanding. But I do hope that it's like a 2-3 week rehab type thing, 4-week rehab type thing, and he can come back, hit the ground running, and get to it. I hope he didn't force himself back and come back too early.
That's a concern.
It sure seems like it.
Yeah, and that's certainly. I think if the Ravens probably could have redid all this, they probably don't rush him out there. But hindsight's always 20/20. But all right, so I wanted to move on to a different topic here. The Ravens recently brought back Nate McCrary to the practice squad, a guy that was
this one.
It was really sad to see him get picked up by the Broncos when the Ravens obviously, right after that had to deal with the injury to Gus Edwards and would have loved to have Nate McCrary in town. He certainly would have been a guy that would have likely been immediately elevated to the 53. But good thing is he was cut by the Broncos, decided not to sign to their practice squad, but rather return to the Ravens, where I think he sees a little bit more of an avenue for opportunity here. So with the idea that I've been a little disappointed in Devonta Freeman. I think he had the one run, but I think any talented or any mediocre running back would have turned that into a big game because it was blocked well, and I think it wasn't necessarily his talent that got him that 30-yard game.
And it was the Kansas City Chiefs.
That's true, who have proved to be very, very poor at stopping the run.
And they're less than average, apparently, so far this season. They're 1-2.
That's right. This is just talking about a bad football team here. So, but I haven't loved what I've seen. I think too much dancing, not enough of the quickness that he used to have, which may have made up for some of that dancing. I think we need a different style of running back, and he just doesn't fit. Now, Le'Veon Bell is a guy who stylistically doesn't seem to fit other than his passing work and what they were hoping to do out of the backfield, but he hasn't made the roster, and some are wondering if he's just a shell of himself and he's never going to be there. So is it time that once Nate McCrary is officially signed to the practice squad, because I think it's just a formality at this point, but he hasn't been yet, should we see what Nate McCrary has? And because I think he was a physical guy. He was a guy who brought something in the preseason. Haven't seen him do it against the regular starters just yet, but are you willing to see what Nate McCrary has in official game time?
This might be an unpopular answer. I want to see Lev Bell before I see Nate McCrary, if I had to choose between the two. At this point, I think that, look, Nate McCrary is also benefiting, not that he doesn't deserve to be back on the team. He's also benefiting from the fact that he was at the Broncos. Let's not forget. Mm-hmm. He was at the Broncos and he's out on the market. So just an added incentive for the Ravens to say, come on back here and, put their arm around his shoulder and say, why don't we have a chat type thing? So I want to see Lev Bell first, but I'll agree with you on the question about Devontae. I think he needs to be gone. And it's unfortunate and it's fortunate in that I think we have some good people that are behind him that are better. But I want to see Le'Veon first. I want Freeman gone. And then if Le'Veon doesn't work out, then, let's give McCrary a crack at this thing. But I still have faith that Le'Veon can turn this season into something. If he has Greg Roman as his OC and the offensive line plays solid, I don't think there's any reason Le'Veon Bell shouldn't have the best season he's had in 4 years.
But, I mean, look, the Ravens coaches see him in practice, and they've yet to elevate him, despite the fact that they elevated everyone else around him.
Yep.
So, I mean, doesn't that tell you that they obviously don't like what they've seen from him thus far?
John Harbaugh likes to use the word callousing. And Freeman had an offseason, right? I think he was with the Giants, wasn't he?
I believe so, yeah.
And if you want to talk about callousing, we all know about the Giants callousing. That's all they are, is callous, no talent, right? Like, well, they got talent, no coaching, except their quarterback. But anyway, that's another story for another day. So I think it's really about the callousing, like, part of it. I think that John wants to make sure that he's up and ready to go. But I also see your point where, like, okay, if he was showing out in practice, they're going to say, all right, we're going to put you in the game and not put some, like, arbitrary time on it for you to be calloused.
It's not like Freeman got 3 carries in his high. It's not like, it's not like we need Bell to be this, guy, like you said, calloused. But I mean, we're asking very little, and yet they don't want to ask Bell to do that very little.
Yeah, it is interesting, but I'm going to hold out hope and faith that Le'Veon can turn this opportunity into something, and that he's going to show out. So I'm holding out on this one, Glenn. But it sounds like you're on the McCrary side of things.
Well, I mean, I think the proof is in the moves, and the proof, I mean, I think that if at this point, if Le'Veon Bell was in good enough shape, picking up the offense, he'd already be up here. And so, how long does it take? I mean, he's been with the team since right before the season started. I mean, what are we waiting on? I get that it's not a bad thing to have a guy like that on the practice squad in the in case and the what if were to happen, but. I mean, if they're bringing back Nate McCrary and signing the practice squad, I get what you're saying. It helps that he has some fresh intel from the Denver Broncos and can certainly relay that information. I'm sure they're debriefing him right now under a bright light, but there's more. I think there's a little bit more than his recent stint with Denver that the reason they brought him back. I think there's still something they feel like they're missing, and he ran hard when he was here. He knows the offense, so I'm certainly that helps get him in the door.
And like you said, stylistically, his fit. It jives with our offense, right? The way that he runs that ball, when he puts his foot down, he starts heading north to south, certainly fits really well with what we're trying to do.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know, just keep something to watch. keep a watch on what they do, and don't be surprised if you see Nate McCrary be brought up before Lev Bell. I don't think I would be shocked at all to see
Yeah.
that. But
Excuse my
quickly,
yawn there, Glenn. Sorry.
no,
I
that's
wasn't
okay.
bored. Just a little tired.
That's all right. That's all right. I forgive you. But I'd also want to say quickly that this show is also brought to you by CBDX.com. And CBDX.com is not your average CBD company. I mean, we've all tried CBD products, and none of it is like the real deal, except for CBDX. It is the real deal. And CBDX.com ships right to your front door. And right now, our listeners, get 20% off their orders at CBDX.com with promo code 410. That's 410 is the promo code. So CBDX makes delicious gummies, amazing flour, and tremendous cartridges. All products look, smell, taste, and feel the same. And they all actually work, which is most important. CBDX.com is the future. Go to CBDX.com, enter promo code 410 for 20% off all orders, plus a free gift from the team at CBDX. Don't use CBDX products before driving, operating heavy machinery, or getting tested, obviously. CBDX.com, enter promo code 410 for 20% off all orders. And look, CBDX loves football, and that's why they're here. So show CBDX some love and support the show. Again, you get 20% off and a free gift to our listeners just using promo code 410 at CBDX.com. But Jimbo, I also have another question for you. The tackling this year has been horrendous. It's been horrendous. And I saw some videos specifically about Patrick Queen that had me very concerned, very nervous, and very concerned. I mean, I don't know if these are business decisions, but horrendous efforts at tackling the ball carrier. And it's cost us some first downs. It's cost us some drives to continue that later led to points. I don't know what John Harbaugh asked about the tackling, and he said, look, it's hard to practice tackling midseason. I mean, you can tackle a tackling dummy all day. He said, I can tackle a tackling dummy. I'm not sure how much that really helps you in the game. And with the lack of padded practices throughout, I don't know how in the world they're going to improve this tackling. So how do they get better, Jimbo? Is there any hope for the Ravens to get better tackling without the ability to practice in season?
You know, this has always been my concern with Patrick Queen, because I feel like last year there were multiple times when he got there and then a guy would spin off of him or a guy would bounce off of him or he didn't make the tackle and this, that, and the other. And so for me, tackling is like defense in the NBA. It's just an effort thing. Like it's just an effort and a fundamentals thing. If you just try hard, you're going to be better at defense than the guy next to you. If you just make it an effort, like mentally switch, and with Queen, it bothers me because he's going for the highlight. He's going for the highlights all the time, and it's very obvious. Sometimes just channel your inner Chuck Clark, dude. And don't worry about the highlights and get your job done, bro. Like just get the job done. Now he was not the only one. I talked about Brandon Stevens yesterday, who keeps tripping over his own feet. In broad daylight with no one around him. So certainly Queen was not the only one, but definitely the focus of Glenn Martin's ire today and a lot of other people. So I guess what I would say to you is I think it can improve. I think it comes down to Wink hammering into people's heads. And you know what? This is what I do. Okay. This is what I do. I'm the coach. Maybe maybe this is why I'm not a coach. John said, yeah, maybe you can't do it with tackling dummies, right?
Yeah.
But I'm spending an hour in practice doing nothing but tackling dummies to say, you want to do this tomorrow again? No, neither do I. So we don't have to do this again. Do it right on the field this week because this is a waste of time. You're professionals. Take some pride in what you do and get the job done. Tackle the guy, right? Like this is ridiculous and should be an embarrassment for you. It should be.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you're the middle linebacker. You're the guy whose sole job. I mean, the big part of your job is to tackle people. I mean, you should be.
That's why Mosley is better. His tent with the Ravens, Mosley was a sure tackler. Say whatever you want about CJ Mosley. He hit somebody, they went down.
Yeah, and Patrick Queen might say, I can run faster than CJ Mosley. Okay, but the advantages stop there because CJ Mosley was better in pretty much every other area. And Patrick Queen, look, he's a young guy. He's only 22 years of age. We get that he's young and he's got the physical tools. You can't teach speed. He certainly has that. He comes through on the blitzes like an absolute blur, but he's got to get better at the tackling. Again, and I appreciate Tim Ott says season tickets money. Don't spend it all in one place.
That.
Certainly appreciate that. We would love to be at more games.
We'll certainly disperse that money. Don't worry. We'll disperse it slowly, 1 penny at a time.
Exactly. But I agree. I think Troy was the one who said it in the comments that he tackles similarly to what we saw from like Jason or Matt Elam, excuse me, where
Troy literally, this might be the comment of the night. Did you see what Troy said about, he said that Patrick Queen is a smarter Matt Elam. Prove me wrong.
Well, yeah, I get Matt Elam was, smart. It doesn't take a lot to be smarter than Matt Elam. Matt Elam, man, what a bust of a pick that was. But I like his comparison because it's very similar in how they come in. A lot of times head down. You got to keep your head up. Got to see what you're hitting. But a lot of times they come in with their head down and leading with their shoulder, like they have no arms, and it's so true. You tackle. You got to wrap. You got to use your arm, use your hands, wrap the legs, and get the guy to the ground. Quit with this trying to blow the guy up. But even when Patrick Queen tries these to go in with the shoulder, he doesn't even bring a lot of power when he hits him with just his shoulder. I remember the play that I'm referring to specifically last week where the guy was tight roping along the sideline and he couldn't even knock him out of bounds. It was really a pathetic and embarrassing effort. He's got to get better. And look, he's young. He's got some opportunity, but he's got to get better there. It's just it's not. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Do I ever?
No. I was gonna say, do you ever get concerned? This is always my concern with taking a guy high in the draft, that they get content, like complacent, right? Like we in my world of work, like there's the term like fat and happy, right?
Mm-hmm.
That there are sales reps that are fat and happy. They hit their quota and they're in cruise mode, right? And they know they can do it every year. So the reason I bring that up is because sometimes I wonder about where his head is. Like he says he holds himself to a high standard. He says all these things. But sometimes to me, it's just like when a person says, oh, I'm a grown man or I'm an adult, usually means you're not one. You got to say it, right? Yeah. Like, and if you tell people
I'm a grown-ass man.
Yeah, and it's like, you live in your mom's basement.
You shouldn't say it if you are. Yeah.
Yeah. And no knock on anyone that lives in their mom's basement, but you understand my point. You're doing something that generally, you shouldn't say you are one. You should act like one. My point is that I feel like he's covering up, like he's overcompensating for this. He always tells the media, my expectations for myself are super high. I hold myself to a very high standard. Okay, well, stop saying it in front of the microphone and do it on the football field. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah, look, they say that identifying the problem and admitting that you have a problem is the first step to fixing that problem. Well, I want to see Patrick Queen in front of that podium addressing some of these questions. Now, I think John Harbaugh and all these guys, he said in the meeting that this is a focal point. So I think that maybe let's start monitoring going forward and let's see if there's any improvements because he's got to get better. And I'm kind of surprised by the breakup of snaps also at the linebacker spot, because as I was mentioning before the show started to Jimmy, a lot of people were expecting Malik Harrison to make a huge leap this year and kind of put his stake on, being that primary tackler in the middle of the defense. Shocked to see yesterday, Chris Board actually played more snaps defensively than Malik Harrison did. Not by a ton. Chris Board played 31%, I believe, of the snaps, or 33, and Malik Harrison just 27%. So not a huge discrepancy, but I think if I would have said 3-4 weeks ago that Chris Board would have more defensive snaps than Malik Harrison, I would surprise a lot of people. So do you think that this was just a game plan specific move to have Chris Board having more snaps played than Malik Harrison? And do you think this is something that could totally flip next week, or is this a trend that we're going to see continue and maybe even the gap widen between the two? What's going on in middle linebacker, Jimbo?
Yeah, look, so I'm just going to pat myself on the back. I said it before at the beginning of the season. I think that Chris Board will be the next Zach Orr, a tackling machine, the running mate to everyone's talking about Malik Harrison being the running mate to PQ. And if Patrick Queen, he's got to hold it down, he's got to do his job and keep improving. But assuming he's going to be there, I think the guy is Chris Board. And this goes exactly back to my point, Glenn, is that's why the draft is such a crapshoot, right? Because Chris Board, if I'm not mistaken, I'm 99% sure he was an undrafted guy. Unless I'm getting something totally wrong here. Undrafted guy, but he's kept developing. Every year he keeps getting better and better and better, right? And so the reason I say all that is because he wasn't given anything. He's taken every opportunity he's had and he's made the most of it. And I think he will continue to do that because that's the only way he sees himself making money for himself and making a career for himself and making a spot for himself on this team. And so I see this as a trend. I think it's only going to get worse for a guy like Malik Harrison. And Patrick, I'm not saying that Patrick Queen's job is online at this point, but certainly he's got to keep improving as well, or else, by the time that contract is up, people could be asking questions and they could be ready to move on. But specifically when it comes to Chris Board, I think this is a trend. And I don't think it's a good sign for Malik Harrison. I don't think it's a game time thing. And look, I could be totally wrong, but and I'm sure the Ravens would say otherwise, but I think that this is a trend. What about you?
Yeah, I'm a little concerned if it does start going that way because we also saw the first appearance of Josh Bynes out there. And if we start seeing more of Josh Bynes and more of Chris Board and less of Malik Harrison and maybe even less of Patrick Queen, then I'm going to be disappointed because I had I had high hopes when they drafted Queen and Harrison. I thought these two were going to be the staples in the middle of our defense for years to come. And if we start seeing their playing time and their snap count starts to slide, either one, I'm going to be disappointed because we all know that both of those guys have higher ceilings, at least in theory, than Josh Bynes, who's on the later end of his career and on the way down. I'd be disappointed to see it. Even Chris Board. Look, I like Chris Board. But I think the Ravens, if you gave him some truth serum, would say we don't really want Chris Board playing big time late minutes in big games because – look, there's a reason he was an undrafted guy. There's a reason why he's mainly been known for his special teams. I know that you were high on him and expected him to make a leap, but man, I just had such high hopes for Queen and Harrison that I don't want to see them losing their snaps because that would mean that they're probably going to be on their way to being replaced and they're on their way to not having that career that we both expected them to have here in Baltimore, and that would be a disappointment. But Tim Ott says Lamar is on pace to throw for 4,063 yards. Ain't it strange that the national media hasn't noticed?
Really quickly, before we answer that, though, I want clarification on your question here. Do you think it's a trend, or do you think it's a game thing for Board and Malik for that snap count?
I'm gonna say it's a game thing. I still like I like when Harrison gets his hands on you. It's a different story than when Pat Queen does. When Harrison gets his hands on you, you typically go down. He's not the situation where he's dragging you forward for a bunch of yards. So I want to say I'm hopeful. Maybe it's just me hoping, but I'm going to say it was just game scenario, and that we're going to see more. We're going to see it flip back or at least balance out and be somewhat even. But man,
gotcha. I just want to get clarification there.
No, I think a lot of that's just me being hopeful, but. But what do you think about the media, the national media in particular, not picking up on is it just too early to start talking yardage totals and projections?
I was going to say, I'm not surprised. It's not strange, Tim. We totally get it here in Baltimore that Lamar is never going to get the love. It's funny to me because Lamar Jackson never gets the love from anybody in the media except for former players. It seems to be for me in that way. As far as the national media, obviously local media loves Lamar Jackson. But in addition to that, Tim, one of the things that Glenn wanted and I want to talk about is also the fact that Lamar now has back-to-back games with fourth quarter winning drives. Another narrative out there that he is now knocked down. So, look, Lamar Jackson continues to prove people wrong, one person at a time, one false narrative at a time. Look, you can only convert people one way, Glenn, and that's one at a time.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. And so two things. I don't think it's strange because this is the way it goes with Lamar Jackson's career. And I'm also not surprised that Lamar Jackson is on pace to set over 4,000 passing yards. But I also won't be surprised if he doesn't. Like if that trend dips down. It all depends on that running game. So I don't put a lot of credit into that because Kirk Cousins has been paid millions upon millions upon millions of dollars for doing nothing. Nothing.
Yeah.
But he's got great stats, but he has done nothing. Look, a better stat. Lamar Jackson has never lost to an NFC team. Ever.
That's insane.
That's a better stat. How about that one?
Yeah, that is that's absolutely insane. But I think that I think the commenters are pointing out. I think it's we've long said that we don't really buy into yards as being the best measuring stick for quarterbacks and their success. So I'm not gonna act like I'm like, whoa, now he's got 4,000 yards. Now haters go away. I want to see the efficiency go up. I want to see the touchdowns. That's what I want to see. I'm not necessarily all about getting yards between the 20s. I want to see, getting in the end zone is really where I'm at. So, you can just look around the league and look at the guys who are throwing up these huge passing numbers. They're not always getting the W. I mean, I can look at the last night's game, which was a phenomenal game between the Rams and the Bucks. And, Tom Brady had 100 yards more than Matthew Stafford. But Matt Stafford had 3 more touchdowns. So who won the game? Matt Stafford won that game. So I'll take, I'm sure Tom Brady would trade in his 432 yards passing last night and trade it for Matt Stafford's 340 for those touchdowns. So it's not, yards is great and all, but until you're converting in the red zone and turning them into actual points, I'm not really, that into it. So, because usually if you're throwing for a lot of yards, it's probably because you're behind and you're trying to get back in the
when
game.
Dak was lighting it up before he had that ankle injury. Yeah. And they had one win, which was a fluke over the Falcons.
Yeah. Yeah. They should have lost that game. Falcons were up like 21 at one point.
Yeah, but Dak was lighting it up. So, like, at the end of the day, it's same thing. People have said, people automatically put Deshaun Watson better than Lamar Jackson based on his stats. What has Deshaun Watson done that has any significance? Like, tell me his highlight win. Tell me his primetime, big moment, game on the line win in the pros. I'm not talking about college, right? Because obviously he had that. But I agree with you 100%, Glenn. It's just so ridiculous, all the weight that's put on these things. They're not solid indicators of success anymore. We can get so much more in depth and so much more accurate with stats these days.
Yeah, and if like the commenters are pointing out, if the receivers could hang on to the damn football, we would have seen some more touchdowns certainly yesterday. Mainly Hollywood. So let's just hope. We talked a little bit yesterday. I don't want to take too long, but let's just hope that yesterday's game doesn't affect confidence for Hollywood. Because look, I don't think Lamar's going to lose confidence in Hollywood and stop throwing in the ball. I think he's going to continue to get the bulk of the targets. So we need Hollywood to go back to what he was the last 10 games before yesterday and make some catches.
Look, I think we got to roll with Nana on this one. He's no longer Hollywood. He is Soulja Brown until he does something, right?
Okay.
Right. I think, Nana, I'm riding with you.
He was doing so damn good, though, up till yesterday.
Man, but that was embarrassing.
That was so bad. So bad. That second one would hit his hands, then his face mask, and then ricocheted away when he had 5 yards of separation.
That's stuff that happens in high school. In high school. I'll never forget. I threw a pass to my friend in the lacrosse game, and he wasn't expecting it. And it hit him square in the face mask, and it popped up in the air. That happens in high school. This is not, you know what I'm saying? Like, these are the pros, dude. Catch the ball. Right? Yeah. Like, catch the football.
And the good thing is, he had the injury. He was battling all week. That didn't show its ugly. He was getting separation. The routes looked fine. The speed was there. So that's the good news, right? It's not like a situation where, it was because of this that he couldn't do that. It doesn't sound like it was an injury. So hopefully he gets his confidence back, gets his head on straight, and starts making those catches we expect him to make because
I want to get through
that game could have been a blowout.
Right. No, absolutely. And I want to get through a few more things here, Glenn. I want to talk about Dalen Hayes. Of course, we saw going down with the injury that has been identified or categorized as an ankle injury.
Mm-hmm.
Now that to me, and it looks like the way they were evaluating him looked more like an Achilles, but I guess you could say ankle. That's fine. But the way they were evaluating him looked a lot like an Achilles, so it got me a little concerned. As for right now, he's on IR, so he'll be forced to miss 3 weeks minimum.
Yeah.
But the bigger story is we now have 16 players on IR, not just injured, but on IR. leading the league in players on IR at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Where's your head at when it comes to the injury? Are you over them and not going to use them as an excuse and say next man up? Are you like, dang, you know what? I don't know how much I can expect out of this team. Every win is worth so much more because of the injuries. Like, where are you? Do you think we can still get it done and make a run deep in the playoffs based on our depth and the fact that we have Omar under center? Like, what's your take?
Yeah, I mean, if you can beat the Chiefs, in my opinion, I know they're down, but I think you can beat anyone. And let's be honest, they should have beat the Raiders. This team should be 3-0, and people can say what they want, but the Raiders did not have a lead in regulation, right? I mean, the Ravens should have won that game. They had a 3-point lead with 30 seconds left. You shouldn't lose that game. So in my eyes, they should be 3-0, and two of their, at least one of their wins is coming against a team who's, the majority of people would expect them to win the AFC and the Chiefs. And then the Raiders right now they're the real deal, and the Ravens should have beaten them, even with the late injuries. I mean, they weren't just the injuries; it was the fact that they were days before the game was supposed to start. And Tim, he said Omar on purpose. It was not an accident. He's been comparing him to Omar from The Wire.
Yeah, Omar Little
for quite some time now. So that's right. That's right. Absolutely. So no, I still think right now they can overcome these injuries, but they can't keep happening. I mean, look, right now we're excited about the guys coming back from injury. So we're getting some reinforcements returning, right? I mean, it looks like Bateman is on his way back. I don't know if I would say I expect him to play this week. I think he's still got to get, his legs under him. It's hard to stay in shape when you're rehabbing a groin injury, right? So he's got to get that back. Same with Boyle. He's got to get himself going and get himself healthy. And then obviously Miles Boykin's also on his road to recovery. So I think that we need to, you can't keep having injuries, certainly at key positions. But right now, if everything stays as it is right now, these guys come back. I still think that that they have what they need to win the Super Bowl and to get where they want to go. Because every team, you look around the league, Jimbo, this isn't the only team dealing with injuries. I mean, the Broncos, who we're supposed to play next, are down 5 and could be down 7 starters this Sunday when the game kicks off. So every team is dealing with injuries. And so right now, I think the Ravens are very much in it. And I think they're right now just as good a shot as anyone in the AFC to win the AFC title.
Yeah, I'll agree with you 100%. I'm not ready to say, a moral victory to the Ravens if they do well this season because of injuries. I'm still expecting output, right? I'm still expecting results this year. And I agree with you. We got reinforcements coming back, Boyle, Bateman, amongst others. And even if it's 15 instead of 16 because if one guy came off, we're still leading the league with 15. So my point was that we're leading the league and guys on IR. But certainly I'm excited for the potential of us getting through this first quarter of the season, little less than quarter now that we got 17 games with a 3-1 record. If we can pull out this win, which obviously I'm assuming that we will. But yeah, overall it's an unfortunate situation, but our margin for error is now razor thin, right? Our margin for injury, I guess, is what I would say is now razor thin. So hopefully we can bounce back and guys will come back and contribute in other ways. But every team goes through it, maybe not as much as us, but like you said, other teams you're starting to see hits on the offensive line and this, that, and the other. I think isn't Brady's left tackle? He's on the second string left tackle this year and this, that, and the other. Yep. So yeah, you look around the league and everyone gets their fair share. It all kind of evens out in the wash is I guess what I would say. So I'm with you. Now I want to talk about 2 more things here, Glenn. One, I want to talk about Jimmy Smith's return. Welcomed return. I think you have the snap count on him, but I was super happy to see Jimmy back. Loved his presence. He made a big play. I think he's a calming presence back then in the secondary. I think he instills confidence back there, and he's a physical presence. So I'm really excited for Jimmy to come back, and I thought he had a decent game in the plays that I saw him out there. But what was your take?
Yeah, good to see him back out there. I mean, I think you're right. He made the physical breakup of the pass midway point through the game. He played 30% of the snaps, which is a good sign. That he's gonna. I think that number's only going to get big. Grow and grow from here. But you just never know with Jimmy. I mean, he's always been a guy who's been in and out of the lineup. He's always been forced, even when he played in the games, to miss some practice throughout the week. But the good thing is, this is the type of guy who who doesn't need a ton of practice. So as long as he continues to do his thing and is able to suit up on Sundays, then I'm happy, because I just feel like it just changes everything when he's out there, especially with the Marcus Peters injury. You need that depth. And then you add on top the Westry injury. We're starting to lose outside corners. We're really down to just Marlon and Anthony Aber, the guys you feel good about on the outside. Well, now you add Jimmy, and it kind of gives you a sigh of relief, because Tavon Young has been good, and he's still been healthy, banged up a little bit, but he's been ultimately able to play. But if we were to lose him, then Marlon is forced, certainly inside, and then who do we have outside? So now, right now, we at least know we have some depth on the outside, got some experience, got a guy who's seen it all, done it all, and continues to play at a very high level. So happy to see him, and obviously it paid off, because I don't know how much he was matched up on TJ Hawkinson, but whatever the game plan was, we finally saw a Ravens team able to shut down and slow down an opposing tight end. I mean, he was by far their leader in basically every receiving category. And then, last game, just yesterday, he had 2 catches for just 10 yards. I mean, he was the guy they focused on the most, and it certainly showed and paid off in a big way, limiting that guy to just 2 catches, 10 yards, when every other tight end was taking the Ravens to school.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we got one more topic to cover here really quickly, but we also got some big news as far as our guests this week. So hang out here, a little tease as we get through the segment here. But really, to wrap this game up and put a bow on it, Glenn, this is what I want to know. Mm-hmm. Was it more about good Ravens pulling this win off, or was it more about the fact that the Lions are just that bad that the Ravens were able to get away with a W up in Motor City? And where are you at based on your answer to that? What's your concern level for this team moving forward? Was it more of an anomaly and you expect them to play better, or is this kind of how every game is going to be? What's your take there?
Man, I hope every game isn't like this, because my goodness, I don't think I can handle it emotionally. But I'll say this. I think what we saw out of the first half is more indicative of the quality of these two teams. I think the second half, the Ravens kind of took their foot off the gas a little bit. They kind of knew they were the better team on the field. They were up 10-0, and really they should have been up a lot more than that. I think we can all agree there. They should have been blowing this team out by halftime. But they didn't, and they left the window open. The Lions were able to find some success in the third quarter. And when you're only up 10-0, the game's certainly not out of reach. You start getting some confidence. And then we say it all the time on this show, confidence is the most important thing in sports, especially at the highest level, when we all know the guys have the talent to be there. They wouldn't be there. So they got confidence. And then the Ravens' confidence started to shake. And then we saw the result. But in the end, the good team did what good teams do, and they find ways to win. And the bad team did what bad teams do, and they find ways to lose the game. So the Lions, is as much as they are a scrappy bunch, a team that I think gave the Ravens a lot more headaches than they thought they would. They're not going to be a good team this year. They're not going to compete for a playoff spot. They're not going to certainly compete for a championship, where the Ravens still have those hopes and aspirations alive. And I just think that we saw something we haven't seen in the Lamar era. We saw a team play down to the level of their opponent in the Ravens, which is something we got used to when Flacco was here, but certainly haven't seen since Lamar's been here. So let's hope that this isn't something we see going forward. But look, this was a classic trap game, right? I mean, coming off that emotional high of the Chiefs win, going on the road to play an 0-2 team, a team everyone and their brother expects you to beat, and they almost got caught sleeping. But luckily for the Ravens, we have Lamar Jackson, and we have the greatest kicker of all time in Justin Tucker, and they were able to sneak out of there with a win.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess what I'll say here is good Ravens in this way. Depth equals good. Look, there was a lot of ways that we could have lost that game, but the fact that we are deep with all the injuries, and the fact that we put enough emphasis on positions that other teams don't seem to, like having the best kicker of all time, means something. It means more wins than other teams year in and year out. And so good Ravens for me. Good Ravens based on the fact that you were able to go in there and squeeze it out. And look, maybe I'm always a glasses half full type guy drinking the purple Kool-Aid, but I'm rolling with good Ravens. So for sure, good Ravens. Glad we got out with the W. Now, I want to say a couple things One, I will indulge quickly, and I will share a picture. Nana asked for a picture, so I will. I'm gonna show you guys the newest.
And after you do that, we gotta talk about our over under results.
Oh yeah, and we got a huge guest this week.
Yes. Okay. I got the over under results after you show the newest member of the 410 flock.
That's right. So let me know when you guys can see this. There he is, right there.
There he is, handsome Henry.
As Henry Alexander Haskell, beautiful as he can be in all his glory. So loving him to death. He's that hat was way too big for him. That was like a 3 to 6 month hat, but it was the only one I could find, and we were trying to get out of there. And anyway, but he's great. He's awesome. There he is. Love him up. He's awesome.
Yes,
anyway, so but what I wanted to share with you guys, outside of having Henry on the show soon, and don't worry, Brandon, he will have plenty of Ravens gear. We weren't even out of the hospital yet at that point.
The question is, have you gelled his hair yet?
No gel in the hair. No gel in the hair yet. But my grandfather's name is Henry, and I'm super happy to have a Henry Haskell back in the family again. And I'm looking forward to what this kid becomes. But one of the things that I wanted to mention is that Lionel Dalton, guys, Lionel Jelly Dalton, you've probably seen him recently in the Ravens news and the Ravens media, on the lounge, all over the Ravens website. He is a former Raven defensive lineman, in fact, a Super Bowl champion here with the Ravens, and recently went through a kidney transplant, was having obviously some major issues, and was going to essentially lose his life if he didn't get this transplant. But he has been able to successfully get a transplant and has dedicated his life to working to help others in situations such as that. So Lionel Jelly Dalton will be on the show Wednesday night, and we are excited and feel honored and privileged to have him on. So that's one guest that we're going to have on this week. And then there also is another one. Isn't that right, Glenn? A guy from the Broncos Wire.
Yeah, right now it's expected that we're going to have him. Still working on getting some of the final details worked out, but
stay tuned.
Yeah, right now we're working on getting a member of the media that covers the Broncos on the show. I think we're going to have him on, but haven't gotten complete and total confirmation yet. But be on the lookout. We're hoping to have someone on to represent the Broncos, give us a little more insight on exactly who we're going to be suiting up against, because they got some injury issues as well dealing with right now. But yeah, absolutely excited this week. Got some good guests. We were going to have our Lions guy on, but unfortunately, he fell ill and couldn't get on. And we like Jeff Risdon so much, we just couldn't replace him with another Lions representative. So we're hopeful that he's feeling better, and we'll absolutely have him on again sometime in the future. But as far as the over-unders, I wanted to talk about that. And Jimbo,
yeah, let's get to it.
I know you found some entries. So while I read the results and all that stuff, let me know if you can find who our winner was. But I'm going to go into so our first, no pressure, but you got some time because I'm going to read these off. But last week we set the over-under. We set a few over-unders. The first of which was Hollywood's receiving yards. He started off the year in a phenomenal way. So we set his over-under at 91.5 receiving yards. I selected over. Many people did as well, including DK and Tony, who was filling in for Jimmy at the time. We all know what happened in the game. He would have gone well over the expected 91.5. But, of course, after the drops, he was only able to turn 3 catches into 53 yards despite having 7 targets. So we all missed it on that one, at least on our end. So answer to question over-under number 1 was an emphatic under, unfortunately. Tyson Williams, we set his over-under at 93.5 yards. I went over while DK and Tony both went under. They were obviously correct. I was big time wrong. Tyson Williams only had 22 yards on the ground. So under for both to start, not the direction we wanted to go. Then TJ Hawkinson, this is how we bounce back. TJ Hawkinson, we set the over-under 81.5 receiving yards. I said over because I needed to see them slow down a tight end before I was going to buy into it. Tony agreed with me and said over. DK said under, and he was absolutely right. This guy was a non-factor in the game, did not impact the game whatsoever. He had just 10 yards on 2 catches, so he really stunk up the joint. And then penalties was a huge issue coming into this game. We know this offense needs to stay ahead of the chains if they want to operate how they like to. I set the over-under at 6.5. I said under, and so did everyone else on this show, and they agree with, and we barely were right. They had 6 penalties, so barely got under that over-under of 6.5. But they were some costly penalties. I mean, some of them were a little bit, they had 6 penalties for a total of 69 yards, so they certainly impacted the game.
It looks like you set it at 5, Glenn.
I have it at 6.5 on my screen.
All right. So according to a lot of the folks that participated, they have that at 5 penalties. But either way, they were both under anyway. So
well, they were under 6. They had 6. So this could be a big one here.
Well, what I'm saying is that
they said under?
They both said under, right?
Okay, got you. Okay. All right. So yeah, it was 6 penalties, so I was correct, but just barely. Now, total yards for the Ravens. This was more of a closest to the pin. I guessed 440. Their total yardage for the day, 387. So a little bit under their average for the year, but just enough to get it done. But they were at 387, Jimbo, for the total yards. And then total score, I said 27-13 for a grand total of 40. I was off by a decent margin. They ended up 19 to 17. So a grand total of what's that, 36? So I wasn't too off. I had a 40. They were only at 36. So I was pretty close. I was the closest among our group of guessers. But Jimbo, with that being said, have you been able to come to a winner? And by the way, okay, but YouTube, anonymous YouTuber, I don't think we've gotten your size and address yet. I know that you won because we saw you in here when we congratulated you, but we haven't gotten your size. So please DM us. Troy, I know your shirt is on the way. I think we sent over the tracking number. But yeah, we will have a new, fresh group of over-unders and closest to the pin in Wednesday. So let us know, make sure you participate on our Wednesday show. That way we can get you out a shirt if you win our over-under contest. But Jimmy, who was our winner this week?
Yep. All right. So I'm going to verify this with you really quickly to make sure that I'm right. But, okay. So let me just review this with you really quickly. So it's down to 2 folks, Edwin Navedo and Joe Knight. So let me just verify. Hollywood was under, correct?
Correct. Yep.
All right. Tyson was also under.
Correct.
Okay. TJ was under, of course.
Correct.
Penalties under.
Yep.
All right. And then, all right. So at this point, they're tied. Total yards was over or under? Sorry, give me that again.
Well, it was closest to the pin. So they got 387. Okay. So who was closest to 387?
Oh, Edwin was at 480.
Oh, almost 100 off.
Yeah, and wait, so what was the number? 487 you said?
387.
Oh, wow. Okay, my bad. I thought you said 47. Joe Knight was 454, so he's closer. And these are the two that one of those two is going to win it. The total score what was
the grand total was 36.
450, and let me give you the other one. Bear with me, hold on. Let's see, 35.
Ooh, who was that? Joe?
Edwin.
Okay. So Edwin was off by only 1 in the score guess, but he was off by almost 100 in the yardage.
And Joe was off by 14 in the scores, and a little under 100 in the yards.
So I guess we got to give it to Edwin.
Got to give it to Edwin.
So congratulations to Edwin, who I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Edwin, I think he is also a member of one of our Facebook groups that we're a part of, and we do certainly communicate back and forth a lot with. So congratulations, Edwin. I'll let you say his last name, Jimbo, because I'm going to butcher it.
Yeah, Edwin Navedo, which is awesome, man. That is so cool. Shout out to Edwin. Make sure, yeah, absolutely. Shirt is headed your way. I'm replying to the comment right now where you put the score in, where you put your guesses in. You're the winner. We'll send you the shirt. All we need is you to DM us your address where you want it to go and your shirt size, and we'll get that over to you ASAP. But guys, make sure you're getting into the contest. If there's something you want us to add as a reward for winning, in addition to the shirt, let us know. And then also, make sure you're here on Wednesday nights. We're excited for it, and we're ready to get into it. But Glenn, I think we ought to get to some shout outs.
Yeah, let's do it. Iman Thomas is upset that he or she missed the picture of Handsome Henry, Jimbo. But I mean, don't forget, guys. You can always look back at the rest of the episode if you missed it, and hope you do so because he's quite a looker, and you'd be missing out. But Adam Graff, appreciate you coming out. Yeah, absolutely. Congrats to Edwin. Tanja Bowman, appreciate you always being out here with us. Okay. Iman is a she. Okay. Didn't know for sure. You never know. Want to make sure I cover all my bases. Billy Seals, appreciate you coming out. Yeah, Jimbo, we got to get a lanyard going.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, I agree. And that's what Billy Seals suggested. And I agree. Fabian Barcenas, I appreciate you coming out. Prince Quan, always showing the love and keeping us busy in the comments. Appreciate that. Brandon Thompson, thanks for coming out and commenting. Nana Rave, as always, we love and appreciate you and all that you do to support us. Thank you so much. Troy, always in here, keeping us going, getting excellent comments in there.
The original contestant winner.
That's right. Troy is the throwback, the OG, always in here making us laugh and keeping us on our toes. Self-taught Gardner, who was in tears when Justin Tucker made that kick. I think a lot of people were, and also a lot of Lions fans in tears for the opposite reason. Christopher Shook, appreciate you always coming out here with us and obviously knows his stuff and lets us know in the comments when we're a little bit off base. Go Man, always in here. Appreciate you. Let's see. Who was it that won the basket? I saw him in here earlier. Now I'm blanking
funny
on his
looking
name.
Yo. And I'm glad he liked it. He said his sister and loves it, and they use the koozie every day. He said he uses it every day to cover his water. Shout out for sure. Glad you enjoyed it. That was a great story.
Yeah, and how awesome. Their whole family, first game, and they go to see the daggone Chiefs game. I mean, wow, amazing.
Yeah.
By the way, I was curious, how did your young daughter, how'd she handle the noise? Because I know when I brought my son to an Orioles game, his first Orioles game, he was quite young, and the crowd exploded during one moment and scared the bejesus out of him. So hopefully she handled the noise better than my son did back then. But Devin Dukes, appreciate you coming out. All of you who commented, all of you who watched silently, we appreciate all the love, all the support. And make sure you guys are here with us Wednesday. We'll be back with some awesome guests. Iman Thomas, appreciate the love.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We will see you guys soon.
See ya.